Us again.
Well, a very good morning to you, Eben.
This is really what the world is waiting for. Is there a bit of a scrum going on outside the court again today, Griselda?
Well, certainly there was just a few minutes ago there, Eben, when Oscar Pistorius arrived with some of the people who usually escort him inside this courtroom. Quite a media scrum, of course, to get the latest picture of Oscar Pistorius as those pre-sentencing arguments begin today. We're expecting, of course, the defense to begin mitigating factors. By that, I mean factors that could possibly lessen Oscar Pistorius' sentence. You'd know, of course, as you've pointed out, that culpable homicide in South Africa does not carry a minimum sentence. So Oscar Pistorius could really face anything from a fine to a suspended sentence and even up to 15 years in prison. But many of the law experts who we've spoken to say that 15 years is really unlikely. But of course, all of this is up to the discretion of Judge Thokozile Masipa and the factors that she certainly takes into account. But those factors that we're expecting the defense to focus on are, for example, the defense stating inside court that Oscar Pistorius is a first-time offender and that the court should really be lenient towards him in that respect, and that Oscar Pistorius has shown remorse. That's what we're expecting the defense to really push inside this court, to say that Oscar Pistorius has shown remorse for shooting and killing Reeva Steenkamp. They'll point to the devastation that we saw, Oscar Pistorius vomiting, of course, and often inconsolable sometimes, in particular when he took the stand, and also to point out that Oscar Pistorius has suffered enough. Those are some of the factors that we're expecting the defense to put through, to say that Oscar Pistorius has suffered enough during this trial that we've seen here in South Africa. But on the other hand, the state we're expecting, once the defense has finished its arguments, we're expecting the state in aggravating circumstances to say then that Oscar Pistorius, even though he is a first-time offender, Oscar Pistorius has shown behavior of, or rather criminal behavior, in that you would recall there was a brawl inside a nightclub in Sandton when the court had adjourned, and they basically point to Oscar Pistorius' behavior and really try to convince Judge Thokozile Masipa and this court that Oscar Pistorius should spend some time in jail.
Is this going to take up the next couple of days and then sentencing will get underway with the judge? How will the rest of the week look like then, Griselda?
Well, what we're sensing at this time, Eben, is that initially we were expecting both the pre-sentencing arguments to finish at least by Wednesday, but we're hearing from the National Prosecuting Authority that that might take much longer. We might even see it stretch into, or at least until Friday, because you would recall that the state in this case would want to bring witnesses, additional witnesses, to drive home its point that Oscar Pistorius should go to jail. He should be held responsible for shooting and killing Reeva Steenkamp. As you already know, Judge Thokozile Masipa did find that he was negligent when he pulled that trigger, hence the culpable homicide conviction. But of course, there's also the defense, on the other hand, who would want to call witnesses to testify that Oscar Pistorius is remorseful, that he has suffered, that Oscar Pistorius is a good person, that Oscar Pistorius didn't mean to shoot and kill Reeva Steenkamp. So really, both sides are really playing their cards close to their chest. They're not indicating whatsoever how many experts or how many witnesses, I beg your pardon, they plan to call in this matter. So we'll really get an indication of how all of this will pan out once the proceedings get underway at 9:30 inside the North Gauteng High Court.
Griselda, just in conclusion, tell us about the families, who's there, and it seems as if there's an increasing little standoff between the families now. Would that be accurate, or is that an unlikely assumption?
I think one really cannot assume whether there's a standoff between the Pistoriuses and the Steenkamps at this point, but certainly one cannot say there's any love between the two families, of course, given that Oscar Pistorius did shoot and kill Reeva Steenkamp. Well, we saw June Steenkamp arrive as well with the rest of the family here at the court. And I mean, as we've been indicating right through this trial, she's remained stone-faced. She hasn't been saying much. Yes, she has been granting interviews in the majority to international media. They're not saying much at all. We're not expecting the Pistoriuses to say anything as well until this case has been concluded. So, you know, we're really looking at the expressions that we're getting inside court from both families. And, you know, devastation, I guess, on both parts. But to what measure? Certainly, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I would not be able to gauge that, Eben. But, you know, obviously, June Steenkamp would be very devastated. She's lost a daughter. Some have been saying that certainly a mother's love, the expression that she's had on her face, really shows, she doesn't show much emotion, but certainly some would say if you look deep inside, you'd probably find a woman who's really broken and devastated over the loss of her daughter, as she's been indicating in these international interviews that she's been granting.
Thank you very much, Griselda, setting up the start of today's proceedings in the North Gauteng High Court. Griselda will be giving us on-the-hour updates as to what's happening. She's going straight into the court. We're expecting court proceedings to get underway shortly after 9:30 a.m. this morning. We'll be live inside the court as sentencing procedures gets underway. As you heard, Griselda just told us that the defence will take first strike today in mitigation of sentence. But joining